listening to music or picking your headphones shouldn't make our lives more stressful. I would like people to just try to enjoy the music. I mean, to me, music was all about being happy. You have a tough day, you put on your headphones, you turn on your stereo, and it takes that edge off.
Yep, it invokes emotions. Hey, this is Drew from Moon Audio here, and welcome to an exciting video. We're here today with Rich Grado, COO of Grado Labs, to discuss their newest signature series headphones, the HP100 SE and the S950. So welcome, Rich.
Hey, thanks, guys.
Tell us a little bit about your journey with Grado Labs and your role in continuing the family legacy.
So I probably started with Grado Labs over 45 years ago as a little kid. It was my first business. I actually used to make the screw kits for the cartridges. Two little screws, 2 nuts, and 2 bolts. And I couldn't make them all, so I went out and got friends to do them. So that was my first business. I had about 8 employees at 12 years old. Wow. I continued at Grado until I was 17. I bought a delicatessen. I went to Wall Street. I was always involved with my brother. We're extremely close. And I went off and did a lot of other things for the years. And I came back about 10, 15 years ago.
And how does Joe fit into the picture? I don't know the original lineage of how everything sort of started, but...
My Uncle Joe was a watchmaker and was always into audio. He was an opera singer. He was always somebody who liked to tinker and make things better.
Genius in the basement.
Yeah, it was at his kitchen table, the story goes. Yeah. And then he developed the stereo moving coil cartridge and held the patent on it. And from there, Grado Labs was born. He originally made them at his kitchen table and went out and sold them into stores and had some good friends in the business. And I think they became kind of the Rat Pack for a while there. And to us, my uncle was a legend in the industry. And he went from there. And my brother started maybe before I was even born as a youngster at Grado. And he stayed and was under my uncle's wing and moved along.
And always in Brooklyn, right?
Always in Brooklyn.
Always in Brooklyn.
Building we're in, my grandfather bought in 1918. Yeah. Was the family fruit store, and above it was his brother and his family, and above that was my grandfather and his family, including my dad and my Uncle Joe.
Yeah.
So
I had the privilege to be there. God, I'm trying to remember the year. We had a Headphone meet there like a billion years ago. I mean, this was back in the early days of Headphone, and it's a classic building, that's for sure. Lots of hidden passages and basements, and I mean, the amount of stuff you guys stuffed into that building was just crazy.
We did a little article a few years ago, and the title of it was "Former Apple Store, Now Home to World's Greatest Headphones." But we did the Headphone show in New York a couple weeks ago, and there were a lot of those old timers you're talking about. That
Bose Buttons was there.
Yep, they remember the stories back. I want to say, could it have been 2004, 2005?
I don't know, a long time ago.
Yeah,
very long time ago. And I don't know if people know this about Moon Audio. So Moon Audio, the first 2 headphone lines that we picked up were Grado, because I'm from Manhattan. I'm a New York boy, so I had to have a New York product in my pocket, and Sennheiser, who was, the king of the hill at the time with detachable cables and whatnot. So the 2 best headphone companies at the time were our first 2 headphone brands that we picked up at Moon Audio. So
you've been selling our stuff for a while.
Yeah. So at least I'm going to say, God, I wish I could figure out. I'm going to say 2002. I'm not really positive, to be totally honest. I mean, I was at the original national meet in New York, the first one ever with Grado, and I had all the headphones there for sale. It was my first show. I had no understanding of what a can jam was going to be like. I rolled in with a van, just like a white van in a parking lot selling speakers, right? And I had headphones and gear, and it was just, I had more stuff than anybody there because I had no idea what to expect. It was the first one ever, right? So, but that was fun. That was a good time. So what values and principles have guided Grado's approach to audio throughout the decades? What hasn't changed? What it has changed? Where are you guys going?
I mean, we were always concerned about quality and sound. Sound, we always put sound first. My uncle was a stickler, and I didn't work much. My uncle, I'm quite a bit younger than my brother, so I remember my uncle from going and visiting and playing with his dog and eating M&Ms. But I mean, even going back and reading that, I want to say John Atkinson article from the early 90s over the HP 1000s, the quality and the effort to make everything exactly as he wanted. He developed an amp just to work with the headphone he was developing. So we've always tried to carry that along. We're not testing guys. You know, it's about listening and what we feel sounds right. And, you know, they talk about that Grado signature sound. I do get concerned about as sounds change and our preferences change, but we stick to that. We listen. We don't put something on a machine. A machine isn't going to determine the headphone or the cartridge we come out with. Cartridges are no different. It's always a back and forth. We try something, we listen, and if we like it, we go, and if we don't, we go back to the drawing board.
So for somebody that's new to the audiophile world, how would you describe the Grado sound? And after you describe it, I'm going to describe what I've heard for many years, and you can tell me if I'm right or wrong, because, you know, the great thing about this hobby is there really isn't a right or wrong to the way we all hear things, but this is my perception of what the Grado sound is. And really, it started from the first Grado that I ever owned was the RS1. So the RS1 and the RS2, I would say to me, are very much like studio monitors. Very up close and personal, very detailed. They can be unforgiving if you've got a really bad recording. They're going to let that bad recording shine through. I really think of them as a headphone that a mastering studio would use. I've got a pair of, you know, near field monitors on my desk here. You know, they give a very pinpoint sound, and that's what I got from the RS1 and the RS2 back in the day. Yeah. I mean, how would you describe the different tonalities of the headphones to the new audiophile?
I've always thought of them as making me feel like I'm at a live concert. I listen to some other headphones. You know, I guess that's why ours sound the way they do, because we listen and we produce things that we like. I'm a big fan of live shows. I've been to hundreds of live shows. I like sitting up front. I played the horns growing up. So that's kind of the sound that I prefer. My brother prefers. My uncle, I don't want to say this wrong. I believe my uncle was a tenor when he sang opera. So it was maybe a little more leveled back. And when I listen to my HP1000s, I think they do sound different. But lively. I mean, we like to, one of the taglines I used at one point was listen like it's live. I think we go for a big sound stage, not something muffled. And it's something I've been playing with cushions a lot lately, as I think cushions have a huge effect. And that we can do things with different cushions to allow people to personalize to the sound that they like. Because as you were originally asking the question, my answer is exactly what you said. We all hear differently. We all have different preferences. We all listen for different reasons. You know, are you listening for a quick, short thing? I just sent a 950 to a recording engineer who has a list of #1 songs he's worked on. And he said he's never heard any headphone that he felt sounded more like his monitors in the studio do. And he likes being able to do this work when he's traveling and on the road. And he said he feels 100% confident that he can do his job. And on the headphones, they're going to sound exactly like his studio monitors are going to sound when he goes back to the studio. Also detail. I mean, when I listen, I think the detail that we get is pretty above what others are offering. And I could see sometimes that detail maybe seeming a bit harsh and a bit not what's, and I think age gets into a lot of this too, and what people are used to. And I hate to say it, the bias that some people put out there as to what sound should be like. I am against testing, as I feel like they try to tell you whether a headphone's good or not before you've put it on your head.
100% agreed. 100%. So how would you say that Brooklyn's heritage has influenced your headphone designs today? I know you guys, at one point, you had a special design where I think there was a bad storm and a bunch of trees came down in a park, and you guys managed to harvest all that wood and did a limited production run. You know, what else from Brooklyn sort of inspires and influences the company?
I mean, the GH1 is the headphone you're talking about.
Yeah.
It was a storm where people died. The city was shut down for weeks. It was a devastating storm back in 2012, I believe. A lot of trees came down, and we made those headphones from some trees that came down in our area. And that was the beginning of the Heritage Series. That was the first of the Heritage Series headphones. I'm not sure if the Brooklyn thing really influences our design much past that one. I mean, I'm a Italian kid from Brooklyn. That's what I'll always be. And, it probably affects how our businesses run a little more than maybe our headphone and cartridge designs, just because I've spoken to you many times. I'm a pretty straight shooter. I'm not looking to play games. We're just looking to have everybody do well and move forward and produce some good headphones that some people like.
So let's talk about the Signature Series revival. What inspired the decision to revive the Signature Series after all these years?
I was at Exponer a couple of years ago. And again, I'm kind of new getting back into this. And I want to say I'm a little more out there, might not be the right word, but I go out, I go to the shows, I develop relationships. And there was somebody at one of the shows who said, your uncle was the guy who came up with new things. He said he came out with that first cartridge that was $1,000, and we said nobody will ever spend that for a cartridge. Yeah. And he said, in the late 80s, he came out with the first signature headphone. And people said $695, that's crazy. Nobody will ever spend that. And he said, oh yeah, just wait and see. Yeah. And he said, now look, he said your uncle kind of invented this. I was probably in the headphone room at Exponer with him. He said, this is kind of invented because of your uncle. Yeah. And it just made me think a little. And then I was thinking about it. I was trying to come up with some new concepts for some new headphones, just modernize, because I've seen many people say the sameness. I keep seeing that word, the sameness of Grado. And I wanted to do something a little different. So I didn't want to change everything and do anything dramatic. But I started realizing my uncle was going to be 100 years old, or would have been 100 years old in 2024. And I thought it was the perfect way to produce a headphone that kind of acknowledged him. Yeah. And that was the birth of the HP100. Yep. And the SE for special edition, that's it there. And then we just thought it was a natural to keep it as the signature line. The HP100 isn't a limited edition, it's a special edition. There's no intention of stopping production at this point. And the intention is to have more headphones in the signature line come out in the not too distant future.
So are there any elements from the original design, the HP1 from 1990, that's influencing this headphone? I mean, obviously it's silver like the original, but is there anything else, or is it just 100% different?
A lot of people said the sound signature wasn't the same. Our intention was never to duplicate that headphone. I think the shape of it is very similar. We did the aluminum, we did change the color. We didn't want to go with the clear anodizing, which actually there were some problems on the original ones. A lot of the lettering came off. It didn't stay the way they were silk screened. Yeah. But the overall shape of it is something we copied, the housing itself. We enlarged it, tried to make it a little more modern. We did include the F cushions kind of as an initial push to that. You tune them to the way you like them. And the originals didn't come with F cushions. But everything else about it was really just a headphone in name that was recognizing what he did. And in some ways, that was the birth of headphones for Grado. Well, this is the birth of the changes at Grado and the new line of signature headphones that will be coming out with going forward. And things like detachable cables, which I know
huge
have probably gotten more talk than anything. I will also say the cushions, to me, became pretty interesting, just in that it got the conversation going. Watching the conversation on the threads, who prefers the G's and who prefers the F's, is kind of funny.
So the HP100 and the S950, when designing these two distinct models in the signature line, what different listening experience were you aiming to create to separate them from each other so that they weren't just one's wood, one's metal?
We were trying to tone down that detail. I mean, we remember back with the PS 1000 and 2000, we thought of the HP 100 more along that line, more of that studio monitor that somebody would use in the recording industry. We were looking with the S950 to tone that down a little more, something more of a home listener for the person who wanted a little warmer sound and a little different approach.
You know, what materials have you chosen for each? I know the Brazilian walnut versus aluminum housing reflects their sonic character. I mean, how do the materials influence what's going on with the sound signature, do you guys find?
Well, that question actually makes me say there's another similarity to the HP, the original HPs. Some people say ones, some people say 1000s. The originals were in aluminum. So we did want those to be in aluminum. And the old PS headphones were also in aluminum. They were finished differently, but they were also, or a metal headphone, I should say. We've always liked the woods. We've always liked the feel that we get in the sound signature we feel we can accomplish with the wood headphones. So we were looking to soften it up. We wanted the different look. We know a lot of people feel the look of them is a little more comfortable. It's a little more of that cozy, homey feeling as opposed to that sharp look of the aluminums. So we're constantly trying to play with different things. Easier to play with different woods than it is to play with different metals. Just the process of producing it is a little different, and maybe that's partly how we're set up to work with them. So there are different woods that we're always working with and trying to accomplish different things with.
And then I see you're doing combinations of woods, right? It used to be it was just mahogany or something, and now you're using multiple versions on different parts of the cup to change the resonance frequency of the cup, I'm assuming.
Yeah, we're finding some of it's, I mean, they all play into the sound somewhat. But we're also finding they create some interesting looks. And, you know, it used to be all that mattered was the sound. But I think as there are plenty of good sounding headphones out there are other things that start playing into people's preferences, you know, the look of something, the feel of something, the weight of something. Yeah. I mean, the S950 is substantially lighter in weight than the HP. I think the HP100 is about 520 grams. The S950 is 390 or 395. So it should be a much lighter feel on your head as well.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. And I mean, with the G cups, there's a certain balance that those cushions create. That, you know, the weight, the weight seems more when you're holding it than when you put it on your head. The G cups do something that just elevates, if you will, the headband, and so you don't get pinpoint pain in the top of your head from some headphones that are super heavy that'll cause. So it's interesting what those cushions do for that.
And I will say, I listen to what people say. I'm not telling you I'm going to do what all the feedback is. But, you know, we changed the headband assembly. We added some cushion. A lot of people are saying you added some, but maybe you should have added more. We'll look into things like that. On the HP100, it's really, other than the cushion, it's totally rebuilt. The housings are different. The drivers are different. The headband assemblies, the gimbals, everything about it has been re-engineered. The cups don't spin all the way around anymore. The cables, we've lightened up the weight and made them more flexible, and we're still working on things like that. And we're making the headbands where they're compatible with the older headphones. You'll be able to come in and buy the headband assembly that's on the HP and the S950 and put it on your PS 1000s or GS headphones. And the RS1 is really where that one starts. So if you wanted the new headband assembly with the new gimbals, it's a single piece and it's 4 screws. You just unscrew the old one and screw the new one on, and it's all taken care of. And we're probably going to have an offer at some point when we get there where we will modify some of the old headphones if you want to go to detachable cables. So saying that, I'm sure I'll be getting emails every day now. Are you doing it yet? Are you doing it yet? We're months away on that. Hopefully the new headband assemblies will be available in the next few weeks. And some of the headphones we don't feel can be modified. The hemp is a little difficult. I wouldn't recommend making the hemp headphone or the RS1 that has the hemp. I wouldn't recommend making that a detachable cable.
No comments from a detachable cable modifier here.
No, I'm just saying the hemp headphone. The hemp's a little...
Yeah. The wood's soft. It's really hard to work with, but
yeah,
we've done some crazy mods over the years with Grados. I mean, and that brings to the next statement is the detachable cable system marks a significant design change for Grado. Yeah. What sort of led to this? I mean, in my mind, hardwired cables from way back when were always from a retailer problematic, because if the cable goes bad and there's nothing wrong with the headphone, to try and get the cable fixed, you got to send everything in. For me, it was always about warranty. I mean, sound's important. Cables can make a difference with a headphone, but the fact that you had to send your headphones in to get a new mini plug put on the cable or something like that, the customer's without his headphones for a few weeks and he's not happy. So, I mean, I'm assuming that's part of the reason that led to this.
I mean, a lot of internal conversation about this for a long time. Yeah, like you said, the warranty issue is totally different. The S950 and the HP100, I don't know if you noticed, have a 2-year warranty on cables and drivers. I would like people to know that please turn your amp down before you plug your headphone in, because the tip is the left channel, and that's the most common blown headphone driver. But the other thing is, we finally tied my brother down and didn't give him a choice. My brother was the guy who was always leery about going to a detachable cable. And I guess after everybody else on the team saying, we got to do it, he finally gave in. He didn't want to hear it anymore. Yeah. So we've gone to it. We've had one cable issue in all the signature headphones that are out there. And it was a bad cable. The cables aren't 100% either.
It's going to happen.
And like you said, it was simple. Send them a new cable. The headphone doesn't have to come back. Nothing has to come back. Yeah. And we've also found people wanting different connections. They don't want 5 adapters. They want a different cable. So now they have that option. And we did use a somewhat standard 4-pin mini adapter with a standard wiring. So cross-compatible cables with different headphones. We're not trying to make anybody's life difficult.
Yeah. So you sort of answered some of what my next question would have been, and that was, how do we honor Grado's heritage and embrace new innovations, right? I mean, obviously, the drivers have definitely been changed dramatically. Tell us about the little bit, without giving away secrets, obviously. Yeah. I'm pretty sure I know where they're manufactured, not the company name, but the country, which is really a great country for it to be designed in. And I won't say anything. I'll let you say what you want and what you don't want. But tell us about, a lot of the influences on the design of the drivers and where you guys are going with those.
I mean, again, it comes back to the sound. We tell the engineers what we hear and what we want to accomplish. And then they go in and they start trying to accomplish it. It comes back. I probably have 60 headphones built with different drivers, and it's listen and tweak. It was a lot easier on the GW100 because it isn't as, there are other ways to adjusting the sound.
Right.
DSP. These, they're going in there and they're making changes to materials and builds and magnets and everything else in there. And we are working on a new driver right now. An additional driver. So to try to accomplish something a little different. Again, I'm trying to get away from that sameness. I can't tell you how many times I've read a review and looked at comments and they talk about the sameness of Grado. Even your comment, what'd you say when we first spoke? When we told you about the headphone? HP100 was not what you were expecting us to tell you about.
Not at all. No, totally different sound. I mean, night and day difference. A very un-Grado headphone, if you would, but it's. I mean, I can still hear the Grado signature in there, but definitely a complete departure. I mean, I was out in left field on that one. Had no idea it was coming. Showed up and I was like, what? What is this? it was really cool. I was really
I
excited.
hope it was a good cool.
Oh yeah, very much so.
Bad cool.
I mean,
And-
you blew me away on all the different innovations. I mean, the headband assembly alone was just gorgeous and beautiful, and sort of what a lot of do-it-yourselfers were doing and not really doing correctly, to be totally honest. And the fact that now we can use that headband on older models. I've got a pair of PS1s that the headband is just so uncomfortable and just needs to go. And so the fact that we'll be able to change that out in time is fantastic. And it'll
I'm
make
not
that
sure which headband the PS1 has.
I think it's just an RS1
assembly coming out that'll fit on like the Prestige.
Yeah.
And all the things we changed here are being changed on that. Maybe not the same materials, but the same limited spin, the same way it's built as far as the height rods and the junction blocks and things like that. So there will be new headbands that go across the entire line.
So what sort of elements of the user experience were important in designing these models? So, you talk about getting, you're reading all this feedback about the same, but what else sort of drove you guys to just make an incredible departure from the existing stuff to the new stuff?
I mean, there are a lot of comments that come back about the cables. The older cable had a little rougher braiding on it. I mean, people would complain about things from it scratches on my collar, and I hear it. It's stiff, it's heavy. The cable on these, the standard cable, is about 35% lighter than the cable on the GS3000 and much more flexible. And we're still working to improve that even more. The detachable cable was a big driver. The headband assembly complaints from they spin around and around and they're wired. So now my cables are all twisted and that became an issue. So again, we limited this.
Of course, they could unspin it,
Yeah, that might be a little too much to ask people. And so now they're limited. They can't spin about 105, 110 degrees is the limited spin. And even the little things, the black caps used to pop off. And if you lost your black cap on your height rod, it would slide right out.
Right.
Well, the new height rods are built in a way, if you lose that little black cap on the top, it's not coming out. It's decorative. So, that fixes that. And the last thing, the headband used to slip into the slot and it would just pull out. Well, the new headband actually bolts in, so that shouldn't come apart the way the old ones did. So we really watched the feedback and we tried to address everything in there. And fix some of the ways. There were even issues where the height rod would come out of the gimbal. And, we built the whole way the gimbal and the height rod connect. So that should be a much more stable connection. And that's twofold. Our customers would lose their headphones until it got fixed. We'd be sending replacement gimbals out, or they'd be sending them to us and it would create service issues. So our goal is really to make the user experience much more enjoyable.
Simpler.
Yeah, we want them to listen to their headphones and enjoy the music, not be, worrying about getting them fixed or sending them back.
So of all the Grado technology and designs currently, what would you say really excites you? What's driving you these days in terms of all of these products and at Grado?
My whole life, I've probably had 20 different businesses. And one of the things I do is business consulting. I'm a guy who likes to plan. I'm like that guy who tries to come up with concepts and plan big,
Big picture.
I told my brother, well, I'm looking at this 350,000 square foot facility to start building these in because we're going to be selling billions of headphones in a year. I get excited about the potential. I see a market that's growing. I see some changes in the industry that leave us open to possibilities. I think we can continue to make a headphone that people enjoy and maybe expand our reach by getting into some areas and different sound signatures that we're not currently addressing, while keeping our strengths and covering some of the parts that we're missing, and become something that there's a product everywhere, somewhere in our line that somebody can enjoy. And the other thing, I still think the cushions can play a big part in tuning, so that people can personalize their experience a little more and make that sound the way they want. Because at the end of the day, the only opinion that matters is yours.
Yeah.
What somebody else thinks doesn't matter. You got to pick what you like, and you have to enjoy it. So,
are you guys going to play around with leather at all, or what do you think?
I've played around with some leather on some of the cushions, and to me, it just affects the sound signature so much. It's hard. We might be here on sound signature now, and maybe here is where some people want to be. We got to get there. We can't just go like this.
Sure.
We have to get in our heads what we need to accomplish and try to slowly get there. I mean, I think the F cushion is kind of like here or here compared to...
Oh, definitely.
There's a lot of space in the middle and a lot we can try to accomplish in between there.
Oh, for sure.
Not just through cushions. Again, we're playing with different drivers now and, making some changes in hardware and even the build process of some of the headphones we already have. So I find it interesting that usually if I think of something to change and I try to figure out what I think it's going to accomplish, I'm never right.
Yeah.
It usually does the opposite of what I think. That's why I try not to even think about it. I just say, make this for me, and then I listen.
Let's see what happens. Yeah.
And we have a few people who, internally we have listened, and then some people externally that we try to get feedback from. So.
Very cool. Well, is there anything that we haven't covered that you'd like to share with the audience about Grado, the Signature Series, what's coming, what's, I don't know. Any good pizza joints open up nearby?
Pizza isn't like when I was a kid. You could go and get a slice. There's not enough
50
foot traffic
cents
anymore.
Yeah.
You gotta get a pie, and I'm trying to watch my waist. I just want people to know that we're listening, we're thinking about what people are saying, we're trying to pay attention to what people are asking us to accomplish. Yeah. I would like people to just try to enjoy the music. I mean, to me, music was all about being happy. You have a tough day, you put on your headphones, you turn on your stereo, and it takes that edge off.
Yep. It invokes emotions. Yep.
Right. Listening to music or picking your headphones shouldn't make our lives more stressful.
Yeah.
I feel like some of the conversations that go back and forth are, not accomplishing what we'd like to accomplish with headphones. We'd like people to say, what Grado's doing is making our life better. And I'd like people to know, hey, my email is rgrado@gradolabs.com.
Uh-oh.
I answer my emails. Don't abuse me. I've been commenting on the chats. I've been on Headphone. I'm willing to answer questions and listen to you and give you feedback as long as you're nice to me and you don't expect me to tell you how we make our sauce on Sunday.
That's right.
We are the smaller guys. We can probably adjust and do things quicker. And, I like that personal interaction. I don't like when I call into a place and I got to go through 82 prompts on a phone before I get hung up on. I can't answer my phone all day long, but if you email me, I do my best to get back to people. We help people. But again, I am 100% behind the fact that you got to do what you think is best and what you prefer, and only your opinion matters. And I really wish people would listen before they decide if a headphone is good or not. Yeah. I've seen headphones test perfectly that nobody
sound awful.
Yeah, they sound awful.
Amen.
So
many examples of that.
Yeah.
And really it's, I found, what I really got into with all of this is the community, sharing experience, sharing stories about concerts, sharing stories about gear, getting together in those small groups. I mean, the biggest thing I found now that after COVID is, we're all isolated. We're all just hunkered down on a phone with a headphone by ourselves. I miss getting together with other people and enjoying the music.
Yeah.
I mean, I realize it's kind of weird to have a bunch of people sit in a circle listening to headphones together. But, I mean, that's what all the Head-Fi meets were about, to be totally honest. I mean, 50% of the time you sit down and listen to new gear and experience and find new things that you may enjoy. And the other 50% of the time, it's talking with everybody. It's breaking bread, sharing stories and getting to know people. I mean, it was, I miss getting together with a vinyl album and a bottle of wine and reading through the sleeve and stuff like that. We all need to get back together and listen to music together. It needs to stop being an isolated, excuse to go into a closet somewhere by yourself. I mean, we need to get back to hunkering down and enjoying each other's company and enjoying the music.
I agree 100%. And I spoke to somebody this morning because I've been working on putting a small local show like you went to 20 plus years ago. Really? I spoke to some of the people who were probably at that show with you at Head-Fi a couple weeks ago. And I'm looking at a place close by. There are other manufacturers near me. KEF is near me. VPI is near me. We'll get a couple rooms in a hotel, or my buddy owns the Hilton here.
Nice.
We'll set up on a Saturday, have a bunch of people come out and try to do a local show. Get some people
Let me know.
in with some equipment. Yeah, just to have the fun. That's my biggest part in life. Growing up in Brooklyn might be different. There are people in my life that I don't remember not knowing. I've known them I still have lunch with them. I still talk to them. I like to go out to dinner with friends and travel and everything else. The socialization is the other side of being happy in your life. Yeah. Sitting home alone by yourself isn't a happy thing to me. So we're starting to do more shows. We did the Head-Fi show here. We hadn't done a show since probably the mid-90s. We did the SoCal show in 2019. We just did the New York show. We're doing the SoCal show. We've already booked it. I believe it's in September. And my goal is to do the 2 Head-Fi shows. I would love to have some new big cartridge stuff next year and maybe do a Sona 2026 and set up a room with a bunch of turntables, a bunch of cartridges, some headphones, and all of that, and get more involved. And for the second year, I'll be in Munich this year, maybe with a special guest. So we'll see.
Well, we'll have both of these at Expo. We just had them at the Florida show. The Florida show is the same weekend as Can Jam, so I wasn't able to do both. Next year, I'll be back in New York at Can Jam. It's been a while. There's so many shows, it's hard to do every single one of them, so we've got to sort of rotate and find our groove. But I'll be back in New York next year. Like I said, we'll have these at Expo in a couple weeks. Definitely come by the Ear Gear experience to check them out. Thank you so much, Rich, for taking the time to join us today and sharing these insights into Grado's legacy and the Signature Series. We appreciate you giving us a behind-the-scenes look at what makes these headphones so special. Any last comments?
No.
Thoughts?
Listen to music, everybody. Enjoy.
Yep. So if you've liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for all the latest audiophile content. And thanks for watching, and thanks again, Rich.
Thank you, Drew.